this belief of, I have to sacrifice myself. I have to sacrifice myself in order to receive love. So I just want to I want us both to introduce ourselves really quick. I'm Tara Greenway, and I'm an intuitive coach. And I help people to get unstuck from the things that mire them down: perfectionism, procrastination, self-sacrifice, lack of boundaries, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about today. And I use alternative techniques that really work in a different and faster way than traditional coaching or therapy. And I use energy healing techniques that are really cool. And that's me. And Carrie, can you just tell us about you?
Yeah, my training is as a certified nurse midwife. So I spent the first years of my career attending births in hospitals and doing full scope women's health. And then in about 2006, I learned functional medicine, which is a systems biology approach to chronic disease and illness. And that is what I have done for the past 11 years. So I work with women only. Sorry to the guys who might be listening, but boundaries apply to everybody. But my experience is primarily with women and lots of hormone balancing, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, digestive issues, those kinds of health concerns that largely conventional medicine doesn't really know what to do with them.
Exactly. They don't know what to do. It's not that they don't want to help. They don't know how to help, I think. That's amazing, Carrie.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, mostly they throw medicine, and there's a fair number of people out there who don't, that's not their answer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's interesting to me how much boundaries come up in clinical practice when I sit.
Really? That is really interesting. So I'm actually surprised. So what happens when you're working with a patient and you think, oh, this is a boundary issue? Talk us through that maybe.
Well, I'll use a little case example because that sometimes tells a nice story. I was talking yesterday with a 36-year-old woman who has a 5-year-old, and she has been trying to get pregnant, and I can't remember if she has had one or two miscarriages. She's a
Mm.
primary wage earner. She's a teacher. She desperately wants to get pregnant. She had a go through with conventional medicine and was sort of looking at some infertility testing. And I met her and we did some hormone balancing, hormone testing, which also includes looking at her adrenals being small glands on the back of the kidneys that primarily make cortisol and epinephrine and norepinephrine, and got her test results and went through them yesterday. And sure enough, her adrenals look terrible. And
Yeah.
that has a profound effect on hormone balance. And so the conversation she and I were having was a lot around being the primary wage earner, having a toddler, being the primary meal preparer person, dealing with being an educator post COVID in the age of technology. And where's the give in her life? As I said to her, the best medicine, my first choice would be to pull her out of work for 3 months and tell her to go home and rest.
Wow. And
Right.
how did that land?
Well, she was like, "Can you do that?" And I was like, "Yes, I can. I can sign off on short-term disability paperwork." But, for a lot of people, that's not really feasible, which I get. I just say it because it makes the point of something has to give.
You have to take care of yourself. Yeah. And I'm surprised that she reacted. And oh, can that happen? I would expect defensiveness right away. You don't understand that I have to, but so she's open to it. But that goes right to the heart of what I think is one of the most challenging situations to have boundaries in. And that is the parent-child relationship.
For sure.
Yeah, because that relationship in the first few years is kind of built on self-sacrifice.
Mm.
And it kind of has to be when you've got a baby or you've got a toddler, because unless your child behaves in a way that my children definitely did not, and no people's children that I've ever heard of, unless they just sleep through the night and they're cooperative, you are sacrificing, probably as a parent, sleep,
Right.
time, money, lots of money, but
Mm.
you also are receiving back like so much love, right, the child, but because usually our parent-child relationships start out that way, I find that my clients have a really hard time dealing with the change in boundaries that needs to happen as the child grows up, even when they're like 8 or 12 or 14, but definitely, and this is where most of my clients are, when their kids are adults.
Mm.
And that because the relationship was built on this, I'll sacrifice myself for you. And most of my clients are women too, although I do see men also, and I have seen men with this too. It's this belief of, I have to sacrifice myself. I have to sacrifice myself, especially in relationships, family relationships, because I have to sacrifice myself in order to receive love, which
Mm.
is, uh, that's kind of sad when you think about it. And they're not walking around saying that, they don't wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to sacrifice myself today because that's how I get love, no, it's the subconscious belief, but that's the subconscious stuff. That's what I work with. And I'm sure you work with that too,
Yeah.
maybe in a different way than I do.
Yeah. Well, I think there's an interesting convergence that happens for women, particularly midlife, where there has been decades of self-sacrifice because that is what we feel has been asked for us from us for a healthy children, a healthy family system, a career that thrives. And then, and then, and then,
Are you going to say menopause?
well, I'm going to say there's a physiologic shift that happens,
Yeah.
and our resilience to, I'm going to say, self-neglect changes.
Yeah.
And
Our
we
body goes, I can't do this anymore. I've been doing this for years.
100%, like the decline in ovarian hormone function and the years and years and years of putting ourselves off snowballs into something that is really challenging and profoundly impactful to people's health, physical health, right? This is the intersection of stress and our biochemistry and our hormone balance where they converge, where the taking care of everybody else results in a depletion that then spirals into worsening and worsening and worsening symptoms. And
Yes.
there's
And
no
that
there's no way out of that without like
changing something,
boundaries. Right,
boundary. Yeah. And
right.
like everything that is hard, it's also a gift because that pattern of self-sacrifice has to change.
Mm.
And yet it's probably not going to until we're pushed to the limit and like, well, I can't get up in the morning, or what happens actually a lot if we don't have good boundaries is we get a lot of resentment.
Mm.
And resentment is a little poisonous, and we don't know what to do with it. And then we bottle it up. And then, people come to see me as a coach, then need to go see you as a medical practitioner, because I always say our emotions are like tantruming toddlers. If you tell the toddler to be quiet or calm down, what does she do?
Yeah, louder,
Screams louder. Yeah.
louder.
You tell her
Yeah,
she shouldn't be feeling that way.
yeah,
She screams louder. If you even just ignore her, she screams louder. What does she need? What does a toddler and an emotion need? To be recognized and validated and and held. You know what? It makes sense that you feel that way. And I'm so sorry it's so hard, and not like you're right. You should have that Hershey bar before dinner because we're at the checkout line and you saw it, but like, yeah, this is hard and we're going to get through it. So that emotion of resentment is one of the things that we've decided is a bad emotion. And so what do we press it down, press it down, press it down. I shouldn't feel resentful. I want to be a good mom. I want to be a good whatever, whatever your job is. And the longer it goes unrecognized, the more toxic it is, really.
Yeah. And I think, I see that process and the extent to which women have to be uh compromised is the word that comes to mind. I'm not sure that's the best one.
It
Before
kind of is. Yeah.
we are willing to sort of square off with what needs to happen, right? It's like if they're running around at work and they're caretaking an aging parent and they're involved in community, whatever, and maybe they have children and they're running around and doing that thing, and they're like, it's kind of hilarious, right? You probably see this too. They come into the clinic and they're like, I feel terrible. And I kind of reflect it back to them and I'm like, who wouldn't feel terrible?
Yeah. I can't imagine why. Yeah.
Totally. Like that whole metaphor of put your own oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
To me, there is no truer time that is essential than for the midlife woman who physiologically is unable to sustain that which she used to be able to sustain, right? She used to be able to pull herself
Yeah.
up.
Although I personally have found that I'm becoming more resilient. So I don't want people to think, and I know you don't either, that, well, you just don't have it anymore. It's not that. It's
Oh,
that
no.
you should have been doing that in the first place.
Totally. There
It-
is incredible depth of resilience, right? But it looks different than it did.
yes.
And
And
it
it's not
requires,
automatic. I think that's what we're saying. It's not just like when you're 25, you probably can go without sleep for a lot of nights in a
right,
row before
right.
and now, like, if I'm up for a few hours in the middle of the night, one night, like, I gotta take a nap. Can't do it anymore.
There's
But
something really beautiful about that, though, right?
yes,
Something really
because it's just
beautiful.
paying attention to yourself. It's just taking care of yourself. So anyway, so I always go to, I'm not surprised that we're talking about that because we started kind of talking about boundaries, but I immediately go to what's underneath it. And so do you, because that's how I don't want to say fix it. That's how we transform this, is what's under boundaries. Immediately self-sacrifice. What happens when you sacrifice yourself? Resentment. And also, I want to mention the other side of it. So we're talking about parents and kids, and whether they're little or big kids, not really kids anymore, which is a really complicated time because what even is happening anymore? And what happens if someone doesn't have good boundaries? Let's say it's a mom with a 25-year-old son. She starts to feel resentful, right? Because she keeps sacrificing and sacrificing and sacrificing. But also, he starts feeling resentful
Mm.
because when you don't have good boundaries, you feel like you're like sacrificing yourself, and that's really kind, and everybody needs you. And part of you starts to not like it, but you don't know how to get out of it because this is just what happens in your family. But the other person feels resentful because really what we're saying when we don't have good boundaries with, say, an adult kid is, I don't trust you. I don't trust you to be able to live your life in a way that's okay. And we're not saying that with our words, but they're hearing it loud and clear. And
I think I have never thought about that in that way. And that is profound, right? Like the sacrifice comes from a place of love and care. But what it does to both people is, and it could be a kid or it could be a coworker or it could be a partner or it could
or a
even,
sister or a brother. Yeah.
yeah, like it actually doesn't even matter who the other person is, but it, there's an interesting, almost, I'm going to say, condoning of unhealthy behavior. Even though it's coming from a place of love, it's so nuanced and complicated, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so nuanced
Yeah.
and complicated.
Another practitioner that I know of, and I cannot remember her name right now, it's Barbara something, uh, has this perfect phrase for it, the mom code. And the mom code is Barbara Decker. And the mom code is that you just give and give and give and give and give no matter what. And how long can you do it? And you have to do it. And it sucks as a code. It's not a good code. Unless, like I said, if your child is an infant or a toddler, those years do require a lot of self-sacrifice. Beyond that, it doesn't work. And we're
Yeah.
not saying, by the way, that your 25-year-old son who, just lost his job because he drinks so much and he was late again and he won't understand. He thinks his boss was just mean and he won't admit his own, part in it. And we're not saying that he's doing great, but we're saying it's his life and he's going to have to learn the lessons that it involves. And if you keep, doing the self-sacrifice thing and not having boundaries and rescuing, whether it's your kid or your sister or your spouse or, then you're really robbing the other person of learning their lessons. And that's not kind.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. You spoke to something earlier, though, that I want to pick up on, which is just sort of like, how do we do it? Because I think that it feels really hard. I know for me, sometimes I feel like I'm being mean if I'm
Yeah,
actually trying to hold a boundary that,
that's the word that people use. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be selfish.
right, or I seem like I'm unloving or I seem uncaring. And being a good Libra, I can see
Yeah.
that experience from the other person's perspective. And I know I have to stand in what I'm standing for, right? Which is like a healthy self and a healthy relationship with someone. And I think that the medicine for that is self-compassion. And I don't know if you're familiar with Kristen Neff's work. She's a University of Texas Austin researcher, and her work is all on self-compassion. And she has written her most recent book, I think, was called Fierce Compassion, and it's written specifically for women. And it looks at all of the societal things that make it hard for us to be kind to ourselves. And she has a lot of online guided visualizations that are free and available to people because if you're not accustomed to holding a line, it can feel really hard. And people's
Yeah.
reaction to you is
Yes.
often not helpful
Well,
when
they're
you're
going to be
trying to do
surprised.
something,
Yeah.
when you feel like you're trying to do something courageous and it's taking all of your reserves to be like, I love you and I am not going to XYZ. The other person is like, what do you mean you're not gonna la, 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 la,
And
la.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I think that establishing boundaries is the only like self-improvement thing that other people aren't like, oh, good job. Like if you lose
Ah, it's so
15,
true.
right? If you lose 15 pounds, people are like, oh, wow, you look great. What are you doing? I'm walking 3 miles every day. Oh, good for you. If you set boundaries, they're not like, good for you for not lending me $1,000 this time. They're not going to do that. And one, you have to be prepared for that. And also you can prepare them by letting them know ahead of time, like if it's a person who's constantly asking you for money, hey, I just want you to know and always make it about not you keep borrowing money from me and I'm so sick of it. I have looked at my finances and I realized I better start saving a lot more for retirement. And so I'm not going to be lending family or friends money anymore. And I just wanted to let you know that. And that's it.
Yeah.
But skipping ahead, because that's the how to like start to negotiate it and to know that they're not going to be happy. And at first they're not going to believe you and they're going to ask you again, and you have to stand firm. But before all that, it's an inside job. And we have to realize, I talk a lot in my work about the definition of something, because the definition of like boundaries or love or abundance, our definition can be a lot different than like the highest and best definition of something. So a lot of people's definition of boundaries is it's something to keep people away. It's mean, that feels bad. It's not generous. Really, I would say the definition of boundaries is about understanding where your like field of energy and responsibility ends and the other person's field of energy and responsibility begins. We have to know that. And it has to be able to change as the person, if it's a kid, gets older, or as our relationship changes with them. If we can start with like, well, here's the definition of boundaries. It's not bad. It's not mean. It's just understanding kind of where everybody is. And then understand that thing I said earlier about like, well, if you're not having boundaries with somebody, you're not trusting them. And that's not a good feeling for them. It's a lot of inside work. And it is, I'm so glad you brought up self-compassion, to have compassion for yourself, and compassion enough, like it's almost like not, I mean, compassion, yeah, but just self-regard. Like you said with the person who came in and was like, well, I do this, this. I don't know why my body won't get pregnant. Well, I mean, does it have room to, maybe your body's like, we better not add anything else.
Totally. Totally.
you know?
I often say to women when they're working on, trying to carve out a small window of time for themselves, for example, a woman in a either demanding job or a demanding home situation, and she's trying to get herself exercising, for example, right? And she's like, I don't have any time.
Not time. Yeah.
I will say to her, that's the sort of thing that might be helpful to schedule into your week instead of
Not
waiting.
on your phone. It's not going
Yeah.
to happen.
Yeah. So you're not like waiting and looking for the window that's suddenly and magically going to appear so that you have time to exercise. It's like on Tuesdays and Fridays from 8 to 9, this is what you do. And it just becomes an automated habit that you stick to. And what I say to them is, it is unlikely that anybody is going to roll out a red carpet for you and say, did you want to exercise now? Here, let me take care of everything else so that you can do that. In that way, sometimes we're our own worst enemy because we're the multitaskers and
That's
we're
back to self-sacrifice. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it really is just like it has to start, I think, with that commitment to self. And
Yeah. It starts within, and exercise is a great example of that. Exercise can be a hard one because then we're thinking of, then other issues come in, body image. I, didn't get chosen for the baseball team in high school, whatever, but even 20 minutes every day of meditation,
Mhm.
walking, I would say in my work, looking at your beliefs. So I have to sacrifice myself to get love, looking at your energy patterns. There is actual physical things you can do just with the energy of your hands to create better energy boundaries for yourself, because you're so used to not having boundaries. Your body doesn't get how to have boundaries. So there's a million things out there. I mean, I use theta healing, EFT tapping, Donna Eden energy work, IFS, which is internal family system. There's so many things out there, some of them free, like you mentioned. Even an app can help. I use the Headspace app, just like 15 minutes in the morning, because then you have you. If you don't have you, how are you going to have boundaries? Because you don't know where you start and end. So, and if you do feel secure and confident in the fact that you deserve boundaries, and then it's going to ultimately help the other person too, then you can come at establishing and upholding boundaries. And it's the upholding that's the hard part, um, in a way that's super centered and calm. Boundaries are really, it's going to make things difficult, and everybody's going to cause fireworks if you come at boundaries with a little bit of underconfidence or anger or resentment. And like I said, you have resentment, so it's hard. So you have to handle it all on your own, and you better get some ways to do that. And then you'll be able to just be like, oh, but I remember how I told you I'm not lending money to people anymore. And then the other person can say whatever they want, because it's not about them. It's oh no, but my policy is that I don't lend money anymore. It doesn't matter why they need it, that they need it, how badly they need it. It becomes about you and your policy. And they will either, first they'll get really angry, but then they'll either adapt to the new policy or they'll go away. And of course, that's our fear, right? And fear is underneath a lack of boundaries also.
For sure. Yeah.
But
One of the things that I've noticed with aging is that I can, like, the best way for me to figure out where my boundary is to pay attention to my body.
yeah.
Like, there is a body way of knowing if I'm connected to myself, if I'm able to do that, which is really hard if you're in conflict, right? You've got cortisol running, you've got stress hormones going, you're in your own primitive reactive brain managing all your own stuff and
Yeah.
trying to have
So are
trying
you saying, do you go into fight or flight? Is that what you're?
I mean, I think most people do, right? Is
Uh-huh.
they're
I don't
like,
mean you personally. I
yeah,
mean most people. Yeah.
yeah, I think so, right? It's stressful and it's scary and it's unfamiliar and it's new, and like any new skill, it's not practice and we're not sure and all the things. And it is a practice, at least for me, when I'm in the moment, to try and connect with my breath and slow it down and figure out what I'm feeling in my body and where. And
Yeah.
if, I
And
mean,
so we'll,
it's so hard in the moment for me
so and it's hard because, why is it hard?
because I'm like zooming around with, I should say this, and I can't believe they said that. And,
Yeah.
like the cortisol is running and I'm sweating and I want to bolt or, like whatever is
Yeah.
happening
So you have to take a
physiologically.
moment, you're saying. So and you said connect to your breath. So you literally go,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in my best moments, I'm
yeah,
like in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8.
yeah.
While the other person is like, saying why they don't like what it is that I'm trying to stand for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm
There's
like,
going to be plenty of time for you to breathe because the other person is going to be talking. Yeah. Yeah.
true. You can get a solid couple of rounds of 4, 7, 8 in while they're
Yeah.
up
And
and
that
running.
automatically would slow down your heart. Because as soon as you said I tune into my body and my body tells me, I was like, that's yes. And I thought my heart starts to beat super fast when in a confrontation with somebody, would even if it's a mild confrontation, And so that breathing would slow the heart rate, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And communicates to your central nervous system like that there is some safety available, right? And
It
so
is there.
maybe
Yeah.
that helps me be more the person that I want to be in that moment because I am more embodied and less reactive, less just riffing on the cheap floating hormones through my body, which are valuable, right? Like that hormone signaling is important to pay attention to, like, whoa, I feel super triggered and super reactive, and what is going on for me? And sometimes I think that processing has to come later, not in the moment, because it can be too much to discern in the
Exactly.
moment.
You better have done it before or maybe
Yeah.
after or
Or
maybe
debriefed
both.
after to be like, wow, what just happened to me? Like, why was I just with stress hormones, like what got triggered? And okay, fine, I managed it with breath in the moment and was able to stand in what I stand for and hold my line that I felt with my body because I felt uncomfortable with what was being said, or I felt a tightness in my chest with somebody's body behavior, or I felt my breath quicken or my heart rate quicken. And those are the signals when I can stay connected to myself enough in the moment. Those are the signals that let me know, right? Like it doesn't come from here so much as it did when I was in my 30s and I was like righteous about stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Different now in my 50s. And I'm really practicing having it come less from here and more from here because love doesn't look like we think it's going to look like, it turns out, right? I feel like,
Wow. How beautiful is that? Yeah.
in our 30s, at least I'll speak personally, in my 30s, I still had an idea of what I thought a loving relationship would look like. And it turned out not so much. So much less in my head and much more in my heart. And that helps me be more the person that I want to be in those moments that are challenging for me and the other person.
Yes.
It's hard.
That coming coming to your heart through your breath thing that you just talked about, that's so beautiful and so that's so handy. And people will be able to feel, you know, we're animals, we sometimes forget. And we have instincts and we can feel each other's energy. And if we come at a person, at a relationship with an energy of, I have to fix you, I resent you because you're constantly taking advantage of me, they feel it. You don't have to say it, they feel it. If you change some things within yourself, by doing this belief work, changing your energy patterns, tapping it out, changing your nutrition and exercise patterns too, right? If we do that internal work and then we come at the person with a feeling of centeredness and like, here's me and I trust you and I love you and I'm sure that you'll figure out whatever you need to figure out, then they're going to feel that energy.
Yeah.
They might not love it at first because they might be scared too, like, oh, I can't do it. But then that's where the heart energy comes, like, I think you can, you've got this. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the, I think another tool, and this is a Kristen Neff tool, I believe, that's available in the moment when we feel our physiology um, reacting to a trespass or a lack of boundary.
Mhm.
not only the breath work, but one thing that I think Kristen Neff, I think, coined this is just to put your hand on your heart, right? How many conversations have I had with someone like this?
Really? Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody needs to know, right? But there's something about this that connects me to the feeling aspect of me as
Mhm.
opposed to the intellectual aspect of me, who could be righting or wronging or judging or
Yeah.
whatever may be
That's what
happening.
you should do. Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's so nice, Carrie, because it's also like telling yourself, like telling your heart, I've got you.
got you.
I've got you.
Totally.
You know? And when you think about it, it's a little bit of a boundary too. It's like
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
I I have my heart. I don't
Yeah.
know what you're doing over
Yeah,
there. But this is my heart,
totally.
you know.
Totally.
That's
And
a
I'm
really
like,
good one. Yeah.
gonna love it and care for it and
Yeah.
protect it
Yeah.
kindly and
Yeah.
gently and not aggressively and
Yeah.
quietly and strongly. And
And you can do the same. You know, you're going to be inviting the person. I
it's
have
available
I
to you too.
could do it too. I tell clients this thing. But this is people definitely would notice you doing this. So the heart thing is like what you do during it. This is bringing back to regulation. It's binaural beats, and it's also yeah, especially along with the 4-7-8 breathing can be really good. And you can start out like if your thing is that your heart starts beating fast, and you can start fast, like match it, and then slowly bring it down. You can go slower than that. I was just showing you. Isn't
Yeah.
it nice? Until you're like,
Oh my gosh, I love that.
yeah, it's really cool.
I love how we just came up with like at least three actionable steps for people to walk away with when they feel, when they're practicing having boundaries and they need some support. And they're all available all the time and free and come from ourselves, right? So there's four, seven,
Yeah.
eight, there's hand on heart, and there's what do you call this? What do you
I said it incorporates binaural beats. I think it's called a butterfly hug.
Butterfly hug. Right? So like boom, right there. Three ways we can take care of ourselves in the moment, available to everybody.
Easy and free. Yeah. And it starts though with that internal work of, oh, it's like a worth thing. It's like, oh, I do have worth without sacrificing myself for you, without never having any boundaries, or having boundaries, but then as soon as you go into a crisis, we all know that my boundaries, you can just pick it up like a string of licorice and throw it away. I have great worth, and that is something that a lot of us weren't taught when we were kids. Hopefully we're doing better with kids now. I don't know, but a lot of us were taught that our worth depended on how we performed academically or athletically, or how good we were being, especially as girls. Were we being good and quiet and obedient and serving everybody? And, particularly if we grew up in a religion, but even if we didn't, even if it was just,
Yeah. Yeah.
academic, or you know we didn't they just didn't used to come at it like that, like make sure that you have self-worth. People weren't thinking about it. So that's where boundaries start, is
Yeah.
valuing yourself. And then I think, like I keep saying, really respecting the other person, even if they keep messing up. And then
Yeah.
that's hard.
That is hard. I know that we're coming in on our time
Yeah.
together and to share another sort of story from the clinic that speaks
Yeah.
directly. So I saw a woman. That should be like the name of my blog. So I saw a woman in the
I
clinic
saw a woman.
because that's usually how I enter into my stories. I saw a woman in the clinic in her mid 40s, and she is a healthcare person. And she has a history in her own admonition of a not healthy relationship with alcohol.
Mm.
She's using some marijuana and she's midlife and she's feeling terrible. And her mom died when she was a teenager. And
Wow.
her surrogate mother, who is very dear to her, has a terminal illness. Now, this woman does not have a knowledge deficit, right?
Right.
This is not a woman who doesn't understand the value of good sleep, movement, nutrition, right? And this is the case with a lot of people. It's not that she doesn't know what to do. It's that she's not doing it.
And
And
why? That's the question. Why?
so to dovetail back on what you were saying, and that was sort of what she asked, like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not doing what I know is good for me to do?
And then there's the guilt of that.
Right. And that becomes like the negative feedback loop. And I said to her, I'm like, it's a little bit of self-loathe. It's like the little bit of self-hate that we all have. Like, if there is one universal experience, I feel like at least that I have witnessed and experienced, it's that I'm not worthy or people don't feel worthy, right? Like that is the root of 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 the root.
Yeah.
And how do we foster worthiness when we weren't taught and it's not modeled and it can be called selfish or manipulative or framed in a negative way. But to me, that fostering of self-worth is for this particular woman the medicine that she needs, if it is at all appropriate for me to say what she needs, which it's kind of not. And that is what she is coming to me for some feedback about, right? As I said to her,
Yes. Yeah.
exactly. I just said, I'm like, until you harness an understanding of what it is that keeps you from taking good care of yourself and that lack of self-worth that you spoke to, you will continue to do things that are not optimal for your health. So I could say, eat more vegetables, aerobic
Like that.
exercise,
Yeah.
4 times a week, strength train, like all the things. Who needs to be should on,
Yeah.
right? Who needs that? The
And
root
for
for
the
her.
self-worth, though, because then that could just be another thing that they flagellate themselves about. I don't have good self-worth. But that's where what you said earlier comes in. The self-compassion. Could you give yourself a freaking break? Look at this. And the understanding of, like, with this woman, like, well, your mom died when you were a teenager. Let's look at maybe how empty or desperate that made you feel, and then, our surrogate mom, and we all have it, our parents get weak and old and die usually, or they die suddenly, and either way is hard, and I can't think of an example in life, the age 0 through 100, that it wouldn't be about having compassion for ourselves. So the compassion and the self-worth, and then it's got to be about carving out some time too, because it's not going to happen. Oh, this is hard work, what we're talking about, and it doesn't just happen automatically. It's something that needs to be focused on and needs so much
Yeah,
patience and compassion around. Yeah.
totally. I feel like the conversation to have between you and I next is about this self-worth
Yeah,
and
it sounds like it.
how do we foster that in our own lives if we know that that's a common, like a universal experience, and we know it gets in the way of having healthy boundaries and optimal health.
Relationships and your
How do we
relationship,
do it?
job, yeah, and your health. Yeah,
How do we do it? Yeah.
yeah. Okay, maybe next time. So
Maybe.
thank you.
What
We
a
both
pleasure.
it's It's
Thank
great to
you.
talk with you. We'll stay
Yeah,
connected. Take
yeah,
care.
sounds good. Bye-bye.